So in some earlier videos, I had shown you and mentioned that I had created a dual arming switch. On this dual arming switch, I have set up both the ability to disable the arm switch and to use it as an ignition switch to turn on and off the VTX from a distance. So if you're interested to find out how to set all that up, that's this video. Let's get straight into it. Real quick, let me just show you. I've got an arming switch here, and let me turn the volume up so you can hear it. Okay, so this switch was always my arm switch, and it was just the arm switch. That's all it did. So if I wanted to take off, that's it. That's armed in air mode, armed, or disarmed. And that's great, but it's not very safe. If you're walking around with this thing and just, oh, now your quad's going, and if it's in your hand, you got some trouble. So it's safer to add a dual arming switch. And with the advent or the build of the Beast class, I knew it was time. So I went ahead and set up my own dual arming switch. The way this works is if I flip it to the middle, it turns the camera on. That's your VTX. If I flip it forward again, that's like turning the ignition on to your car. But it also keeps the camera on. So now, when I hit this actually arms the quad. Even though, if I turn them both off, even though I hit this, it still says armed. I guess I could go through and disable the voice commands if this is also off, but I didn't feel like it was necessary. But anyway, let's go onto the bench and I'll show you what I did in the Taranis, and then let's head to the computer and I'll show you what I did on the computer to set the quad up for this. So let's hit the bench. All right, to set this up, we're going to go to menu and make sure we're on the 14-page menu. We're gonna page over to inputs. And then I put this right here. I named it ignition, so you can go over and push and hold, enter, and then edit. So you can name it here. To get a capital letter, we're gonna push and hold enter, and to get a regular letter, we're going to just press enter. So for this, you can go up and down, select your letter, and then it goes to the next one, up and down, select your letter, etc., etc. See how I just push and hold and it goes to a capital. So I don't want that. I want lowercase, push and hold, push and hold. There we go. So what we want to do here is we want to select the switch that we want to use. So highlight it so it's flashing, and then just flip the switch that you want to use, and then hit enter again, and then it solidifies it. So that's what we want to do here, and we want weight at 100%, and that's all we do on the inputs page. As you can see, that's the rest of the setup on that page. So we want to exit out of that, exit out of that. We're done on this page. As you can see, there is also one for the arm switch right here, so we're going to push and hold on that. And what we want to do for the arm switch is we want to label it, and then we want to select our source is SA for us, and then here are the rest of the settings. That's all you do on that page. So now we can go from the inputs, we can go to the mixer tab, and then we can scroll down in the mixer tab. So right here I have set up as channel 5 arm, and then I labeled it arm over here. So if I push and hold here, I can edit, and then I'll just roll through and show you all the stuff that we have done here. So our source is going to be arm, and our weight is going to be 100, and most of this is just stock. This is just, we're labeling our channel, and that's going to be channel 5. So that's set there. Then I added down here ignition switch. So as you can see, SG down is ignition. So if I push and hold this, edit, so I labeled it ignition. This is channel 11. Source is SG, and then our weight is 100. But we want to set the switch to SG down. And the reason being is because we don't want anything happening here or there. We want anything that happens on this channel that it has to be in this position. So that's very important to set that up. Once you get that set up, we can go out back to the out of that. Then we go over here. This is our outputs. We have arm. I've got set to -100, and then the arrow that way, maximum 100. And that's all we do here. Okay, so once you've got arm set up, that's all we need to do here. There's no other output value that is needed for the rest of this. So now we're gonna go page, and we're gonna page over to special functions. We don't need logical switches, we want special functions right here. So in special functions, we're gonna scroll down and we're gonna get to, well, first is armed. So I've got this set up so when this is at SA in the middle, it plays a track armed. Now if we go down here, one more, SA down, it plays air mode. So this is armed and air mode is how I set that up. This is armed, and then this is disarmed. So that's what I do. I got disarmed, armed, and air mode set up in the first 3. So that's just sounds. That's all that does. Now if I scroll down a little bit further, here's what we want. Remember earlier we had channel 5 for armed. This is where we want this. So SG, when this switches all the way up, SG, so you can see it's lit up there. SG, we want to go over here and set that to SG up. So that override, that's our switch set to up. We're going to go over here. So we want to set this to override channel 5. And we're going to come over here and set this. We want this set to -100. So what we're doing is we're telling the transmitter that when SG is up, we want to override channel 5, which is our arm switch. And what does that mean? Well, we want to put it to -100. That means off. So this is up. As soon as this goes up, it disables 5. Now, the one other thing that we need to do here is walk over to here, and we want to check that box. If we do not check that box, it's, you know, what we're telling this radio is, hey, we want to override channel 5, put it to -100, but don't really do it. So once you check that box, it tells the radio, yeah, we want to do it. Okay, so there's that. So that's this in this position. Now in SG negative, we want to turn the camera on, but we don't want to activate the arm switch. So this camera on, you could switch this all you want, it's not gonna activate the craft. So here we go. We're gonna set that. Let's go back here. I'm gonna hit escape, go to special function 18, and you could put these under any special function. It's just, this is just how I have my radio set up. So we're gonna hit enter on that. We're gonna set that to SG in the middle. We're gonna walk over to here. We're gonna put that to override and channel 5 as well. We're also gonna put that to -100, and we're also gonna walk over here and make sure this is checked. Okay, then we're gonna come down here and go to special function 19 or whatever one you have, and we want SG down. So we're gonna have our switch. We're gonna hit enter. This will start flashing, and then switch this to this position, and you're good. And then come over here, play track, and then come over here, and we're going to scroll through the menu system and turn this to ignition. And then we're only gonna have that value play one time. So there's that. We're gonna exit, and then we're gonna go one more time to the next special function, switch all the way up, and then we want that to play track. We're gonna have that say ignition off, play that value one time, and then one more time we want SG. We're gonna have that play track, and then we're gonna have that scroll down to camera on, and then we're gonna have that play one time. And that is how I set up the switch inside of the Taranis. So we do have the option to shut off the sounds on this switch when this one is disabling, but I don't feel that's necessary. I know what this switch does. It makes it sounds just like that. That's all I needed to do, and it does work inside of the radio. So now let's head to the computer and I'll show you how to set up Betaflight to accept those values. Make sure your props are off and connect both power and your USB cable. Once you're set with that, go ahead and open and start Betaflight. For this particular video, I'm using the Beast class, and as you can see, the voltage is really low. This is a 50 volt craft. So you want to go into configuration and run down to battery critical and battery low and turn those both off, save and reboot. That'll keep the craft from freaking out on you. If you're using low voltage, I'm running this off a power supply. If you're using your normal batteries, you're going to be okay and you don't need to do that. Just remember, if you do this, you're going to need to reactivate that if that's something that you want. So with your transmitter turned on, go to the receiver tab, and what we want to do is flip the arm switch, and we want to make sure that aux 1 is not working. So as you can see, I flip arm switch and aux 8 is working. We're going to ignore that. I also have this set up so it's on aux 1. Aux 8 is a bug somewhere in my setup. I gotta find that and delete it, but so you can just ignore that. I'm gonna fix that at a later date. Aux 1 is what's going on. So arm switch on its own, we get no change out of that, so that's what we want. Next, we want to find out what the aux channel is to our ignition switch, and if you can see, if I flip that back and forth, and let me turn the volume down, you don't need to hear that. But the ignition switch, you can see, is aux 3. So we want to remember that. And now if I hit the ignition switch and the arm switch, you'll now see that aux 1 now works in both positions. So now that we know our aux 1 and aux 3 are the channels we want to deal with, we can continue on with the setup. We're going to go to the modes tab, and over here we have our arm switches set to aux 1, and as you can see, I'm flipping it and nothing is happening. In order for that to work, I need to activate the ignition switch, and now you'll see it works. Okay, and this is why I say to have your props off, because had we had the props on, we would have just armed the quad right there. So that's integral. I'm running it off a power supply, so there's no way that thing's going to spin up. It's going to kill it's going to try to draw too much amperage, and the power supply is going to be like, nope. So typically I fly in acro mode, but I do have angle and horizon set up on aux 2. So that's something that you can do separately. So if I scroll down here, I also put air mode and black box on aux 1. So when that switch is flipped to the center, it's just armed, and then the black box starts recording. And if I flip it all the way, it's both black box and air mode. So down here you'll see a pre-arm switch, which is also on aux 3. This is an ignition switch kind of cut off. So if you arm the ignition switch and then arm the quad, fly the quad, and then shut off the arm switch, you have to shut off the ignition switch and then turn the ignition switch back on in order to rearm the quad. It's sort of a secondary safety feature for your safety feature. So I activate that. And then down here, aux 3, this is, if I set this in the middle, it's armed, or if I set it forwards, it's armed. So that's my camera. And in order to do that, you need to set up
this is on a Realpit, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But anyway, when you flip this switch into the center, this is aux 3, so that's our ignition switch. You flip it to the center, that activates the camera, and then when you flip it all the way forwards, that still leaves the camera active. And what that also does is arm the quad. So as you can see in those two values, it's armed. Now when I hit the ignition switch and turn it off, as you can see, the camera turns off. And it says user 1, but that's my VTX. So in order to set that up, we need to go into the CLI tab. And what you want here is on the product page to tiny LEDs, this is the Realpit power switch. This is what I have the quad hooked up to. And if we scroll down, we have Betaflight settings right here. So in the CLI, we're gonna go in here and type in resource. And what we're gonna do is find the serial RX or the RX pad that we have connected to. And as you can see, we have I forget which this is on. I think it's on 3 or whatever. We'll use their example. If you want to know what I have it connect to, you can go ahead up here. I'll put the link to the Beast class videos where that is all set up. So you want to find and remember which RX tab you're on. So in their example, they're going to be RX4, as you can see right here, resource serial RX4 A01. If I go over here, resource serial 4 A01. So we go back to their example. So what we're going to do is in the CLI, we're going to type this RX4. So this is if it's on your RX4 pad. So go ahead and type that in, hit enter. Next, you're going to come over here and you're going to set the custom mode switch. So you're going to take this value here, copy this, paste this here into the CLI, hit enter. Then come over here, copy this value, paste this value here, hit enter. Then we want to go back over here and we're going to remember our A01 from earlier, and we're going to put resource Pino1 as A01. Hit enter. And then if you want to set up more, here's how to do that. So once you're done with this, go ahead and type save and hit enter. And that will reboot your quad and Betaflight. Go back into Betaflight, and then we want to go back into the modes tabs. And once you do that, oops, as you can see, anytime you leave the CLI like that, it reboots. So once we're set with all that, go back into the modes tab. And you want to scroll down here, and this is where you'll see user 1, user 2, user 3, and user 4. These will now be active because we activated 1. You can follow those directions if you want to activate like a Realpit for LEDs or a Realpit for maybe you want to put some other lights on there. Maybe you want to put a secondary camera on there. That's where you would do that. So that's how we get this user 1. And now once we've got all that set, we can save, set this up how you would like it. This is how I have it set up, and this is my whole modes tab, how this is set up. So that is how to set up the dual arming switch in both your radio and in Betaflight, so it works on the quad. And as you can see, that there's a backup so that this switch works the way it does in the radio, and it can also work the way it does in Betaflight if you add that pre-arm function. Now, if you're the kind of guy who disarms and rearms constantly in flight, you might not want to deal with 2 switches at the same time. I totally understand that, but it's an option that presents itself as a secondary safety feature. And when you're dealing with the giant beast class quad like I am, the safety feature is great.
So I definitely use it. Some of the 5-inch quads, that's up to you. I mean, there's a big difference between a 5-inch blade and a freaking 13-inch madness prop. But anyway, hopefully that helps you out. So leave me a comment below. Are you going to be hooking up a secondary arming switch? Are you going to be hooking up the VTX switch to turn that on and off? I happen to personally love it because you can plug in your battery and walk away, and you don't really need to worry about the quad draining your battery. You don't need to worry about your VTX cooking on the sidelines. You grab your transmitter, and when you're ready, you flip the switch, and there it is. Or sometimes you might need to power cycle your VTX. You can do it right there on the switch. So let me know in the comments below, is this something that you're going to do to your transmitter? Do you like the added safety, or is it just too much hassle? You just want to get out there and rip and you don't even care? Let me know. So if you enjoyed this video, click that thumbs up button, and if you haven't done it already, go ahead and punch that subscribe button, because you only get to do it once and it's fun, and I'll catch you later. Peace.